Guys, today we're talking about downsizing. So we do a lot of business in Red Mountain Ranch and Mesa, so we're going to use that as our example. So downsizing from Red Mountain Ranch, what that timeline looks like, what the cash out expectations would be, and what to anticipate in that next chapter. So if you or someone you love owns a home in a neighborhood like Red Mountain Ranch, and the next chapter involves maybe independent living, maybe assisted living, this video is the conversation most families haven't had yet. So this is Chelsea Anderson with the Anderson Signature team at Keller Williams Realty Phoenix. And here we're going to give you that insider scoop on what it's like to downsize from a neighborhood kind of like Red Mountain Ranch here in Mesa. So it's going to be a little bit different from our usual market content, but I want to speak directly to two different groups of people today. First, if you're a homeowner in Red Mountain Ranch, we have a lot of original owners still that bought in the late 80s or the 90s, and they're coming into that stage of life where the home is starting to feel like maybe it's more than you need, or maybe the maintenance on it is just getting to be way more than you really either want to or can handle, or maybe you're just trying to figure out what comes next and planning for the future. This is for you. The other group that we want to talk to is if you're an adult child whose parents are, getting a little bit older in their home and you're noticing that things might be just a little bit harder and maybe it's time to start having conversations about what that next step might be in order to prep them for having a successful transition when the time comes. It doesn't necessarily mean the time is today, but it might be coming up in the next few years. So we've helped a ton of families in this exact same situation, and this is not unique to Red Mountain Ranch. We have this all across the board, across Phoenix and Mesa and Gilbert and Chandler, but this is a conversation about downsizing from a home like this one. It's probably mostly paid off or all the way paid off. It's likely held in a family trust, and they've likely been there, or you've likely been there for a very long time. So this is going to be a very loaded, hard, and tough decision to make, and it can feel a little bit scary. So we just want to go through a few quick tips and tricks and hopefully make that a little bit easier for you. So the first one is going to be an equity picture. A lot of homeowners that are in this type of situation are generally in a really good spot financially. The home is usually paid off or they owe very, very little. And it's usually held in a trust. So if we're talking through some of these things where maybe there were two of you that own the home and somebody unfortunately passed away, that within the trust initiates a cost basis reset. So there's some of those things that you want to dig into to know if there's any kind of tax implications, if this is a primary home or a secondary home, but it's one of those things that we want to get ahead of so that we can plan and prepare and understand what that tax liability may be in the future. So if you're a married couple, you are tax exempt for up to $500,000 in gains on your primary residence. If you're single, it's $250,000. There's been a little bit of talk about those getting changed here, maybe coming up, but today that's where those sit. So depending on your specific situation, where your house is, we're using Red Mountain, for example. So if your house is down closer to maybe Thomas or in the villages, the home values are probably somewhere in the fours, maybe low fives. If you start moving into some of the bigger homes or the ones that are on the golf course or back into the mountain, that are a little bit more of a custom or semi-custom home, those start working up into the 7, 8, 900, a million, or even over $1 million. So it really kind of depends on what we have that we're moving from, and it's really critical if you bought it and built it, or if you bought it, in the 80s or 90s and you bought it for $100,000 or $200,000 and the house is now worth 8 or 9, to understand what those tax implications might be. So that equity, though, once you get that in your pocket, is exactly what you need to understand so that you can then budget for whatever that next thing is. Independent living, even assisted living, memory care, any of that, unfortunately, those aren't cheap. So understanding how much equity you can take from your house and the different ways that you can get your hands on that, either ahead of a closing, in the middle, or afterwards, whatever that looks like, is going to help you plan a smooth transition into whatever that next chapter is. So the trust question, what families need to understand before they list is that moment that you have those living trusts and the properties are held in trust, we sometimes can run into a couple of different speed bumps. What we want to know is that if a child is helping through the sale, or if the actual homeowner is doing the sale and it's held in trust, we need to know who those trustees are, who the successor trustees are, and we need copies of the original trust documents. So we'll need, not me necessarily, but the title company, once we get there, we'll need those trust documents to be able to document that entire process for the tax implications on your trust, and to make sure that the right people are signing based on the wishes of whoever set up the trust to start with. So it can be a little bit convoluted. It's not that hard. Most people do know where their trust documents or their trust binders are, but those are going to be something that you will need. So don't pack those up or lose them, or give them to Sister Sally who's taking it out of state. We're going to need those for closing. The other thing you want to keep in mind is going to be the timing thing. So one of the most common things that we hear from adult children trying to help parents through this is understanding a realistic time frame from start to finish. So it's really, really hard to pinpoint how much help you're going to need to be able to get the house on the market. Some of these houses in the neighborhood have been updated and well maintained, and some just have gotten to be too much. And so there's some deferred maintenance and some things that need to get addressed. So if we can get some of those things addressed, we have a really good team in place that we should be able to do that within the first few weeks. If we need to get estate sale people involved, if we need extra family to come in to try to figure out what's going to happen with all of the things that aren't going to be taken on to this new stage, we can help you understand tips and tricks to be able to do that. We can kind of help facilitate. We can get estate sale companies involved, or we can even point you in the right direction of charities that'll come help grab some of the things that nobody wants. So if we can get all of that stuff done, sometimes it takes just a couple of weeks, sometimes it takes a few months, and we're flexible with that. We know this is a big process. We know there's a lot of emotion that goes into this. We know that there's a lot of memories that are tied to a lot of different things in making this decision. And so this is something that you, as the homeowner, are entirely in control of. Once we start the process on the listing side of things, our market is such that right now it's going to take about 2 months on the market, and then we have another month to 45 days for a closing process. So from start to finish, it's a really good estimate to think that it's going to be a 3 to 4 month process from going on the market until you close on the home and have your check to be able to move on. There are some caveats if we go into some, quicker cash deals, or we don't want to go all the way on the market, or things like that. We can speed up that process to about a 2-week time frame if we need to, if we're in a crunch. If we're trying to maximize the value, that's generally how it works out, is that 3 to 4 month timeline. So starting early so that we can help you from point one to the end is going to be where we can really link arms and be your partner as you transition into whatever this next phase looks like for you. So preparing the house is going to be the fourth thing that we're going to talk about. And it really depends on which price point it is, what time of year we're talking about. Our peak season in a lot of these homes is going to be through the cooler months. So when it's really, really hot, our market does tend to slow down a little bit, but through, a little bit through the holidays and then ramping back up through springtime and early summer, that's when the vast majority of things are happening. So if we're talking about timing the market, it's really what does it work best in your world. A lot of times when we have clients that are in this type of a situation, it just doesn't make sense for them to wait another 6 months and delay whatever that next step is, and then continue to struggle through a situation that's just a little bit hard. So we do tend to just launch on whatever time frame that works well for you, really. And we don't want to necessarily spend a bunch of time remodeling, doing fancy upgrades, things like that. We're just trying to make houses clean and presentable. If we have to do a couple of things, we can totally do that. If you want to go through the full remodel, we totally can. But our job and what we found in these type of situations is it's just an extra level of stress that just is not needed. So we can totally have that conversation. I would not jump into a full-blown kitchen, bathroom, flooring remodel before you talk to one of us on what that plan is, so we can make sure that we're maximizing and making sure that we're going to hit the mark that we're trying to hit. Oftentimes it's just a matter of getting us in for an earlier consultation to help put together the entire plan from start to finish. Sometimes that's, something that's going to be 3 months long. Sometimes it's something that's going to be 9 months or even 12 months long. But we start meeting with homeowners in these types of situations very, very early so that we can help and make this as easy as possible because again, it is a very, very stressful move and very big decision that has a lot of emotions. There's generally a lot of decision makers that are involved, and we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way such that everybody feels heard, seen, appreciated, because it is a little bit of a sensitive time. So the other piece of this, we'll go right into it, is the conversation with family. We end up having these conversations not just with the people who are living in the home, but a lot of the kids that are going to be helping throughout the process. So if there's any kind of extra support, we welcome them into our consultations and to help throughout the process as much or as little as you guys want. So that's kind of how we've gotten everybody involved. If we can get a lot of hands in, things can go a little bit faster. It can end up being and feeling a little bit more like an event and less like something to be ashamed of and things like that. We definitely don't want to do this. We've helped our own friends and family members through this transition as well, and they've ended up loving it at the end of the day, but it is very, very tricky in the middle. So our job in these type of situations is just to be calm, help with the knowledge, the market data, help with resources. We've helped move TVs around. We've helped with the move the day of. Whatever the pain points are in the middle, we're here to do it because there are going to be a lot of moving pieces, and we want to make sure that this is the right decision. So if you or your family are thinking about what comes next for a home like in Red Mountain Ranch or somewhere throughout the East Valley, whether that's today, 6 months from now, 2 years from now, we'd love to have that first conversation. So feel free to reach out to me at Chelsea, Chelsa, at andersonsignature.com. Feel free to give me a call directly at 602-748-6136. And again, I'm Chelsea Anderson with the Anderson Signature team at Keller Williams Realty Phoenix. So if you want to, drop the word next chapter in the comments and we'll send you a family transition guide, which is going to be a simple overview of the entire process, the timeline, the questions you might want to start asking now before you're in a rush and a crunch and trying to get things done immediately. So of course, subscribe for more. We cover all of Phoenix and the East Valley. We talk about the market every month and content like this, strategies for selling, for buying, wins, opportunities, all of it for families navigating real decisions in our real estate market. So we are here for you and would love to talk.